This video is sponsored by our friends over at Art of the Trek. So stop buying cheap Chinese-made hammocks. You know exactly the kinds I'm talking about. Just put a generic name here. It's made of ripstop nylon, heavy stuff. So this hammock right here weighs about 3 pounds, and that includes straps and everything else. And it's just not what you should be buying unless you're just buying something for lounging on the back porch. But if you're looking for true hammock camping, I say get rid of this thing. And there are a couple of reasons why I think you should switch from this to a cottage vendor of some kind. Of course, this is my Dream Hammock Darien, and you guys know I love Dream Hammock, and there are lots of other good cottage vendors out there. I know Hammock Gear is starting to make their own hammocks. War Bonnet's another one, as well as Dutch Wear Gear is a common one, but Dream Hammocks are what I use. And let me tell you why you should get rid of your cheap Chinese-made hammock. The first reason why is fabric choice. Is you have a lot better fabric choice when you're talking about a Dream Hammock versus just some cheap Amazon hammock. And you guys know what I mean. They're a dime a dozen out there. And so one of the big things that I can choose is for example, this is a 1.6 Hyper D hammock. You can choose the Robic line of fabrics. Dutch Wear does the Hexon line of fabrics. And you're asking yourself, why right now? Why should I care about those fabric choices? And the number one reason I think is comfort. And so these hammocks will be a lot more comfortable than a cheaper alternative. One of the reasons is the amount of stretch that some of these other fabrics have in them. You get a more consistent hang because of features that you have with the cottage vendor hammock. So for example, a pretty common one is a ridge line, a structural ridge line that keeps giving you a consistent hang every time. The consistent sag of the hammock that you tend to see, and you try your best to get with those cheaper alternatives, you pretty much automatically get it with a Dream Hammock or another cottage vendor who has a structural ridge line already built in. With the alternative that's cheaper, you typically don't get a ridge line. You have to either make your own, which is not hard to do, but it's already done for you. Customization. Those cheaper alternatives, yes, they cost $20 to $30. They may or may not include tree straps, but you don't get a whole host of customization options. I already mentioned the fabric choices, but also netted versus netless. We are talking about different ways you can lay in a hammock, head right, feet left, head left, feet right. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go check out. There's some great hammock campers out there, but the one you go to for the resource for everything hammock has to be Shug here on YouTube. And he has a whole playlist if you're a brand new beginner to hammock camping. Something else to consider as well when we consider all those customization options is that it becomes tailored to your individual need. And so for me, I can never be comfortable in one of those cheaper alternatives because they tend to be about 9, maybe 10 feet long if I'm very, very lucky. Sometimes I've seen some hammocks a lot shorter, and those are not comfortable for someone who's 6 foot tall, 6'1.5" on a good day, to just lay in and be comfortable in. You just can't get a significantly flat lay in the hammock. They tend not to be as wide depending on what you're getting, whereas you have all those customization options with a Dream Hammock, let's say. I know what you're saying to yourself already. You're probably saying to yourself, but those cheaper hammocks are awesome because they're so cheap. Yep, they cost about $20 to $30, and you can get them easily for that price all day long. But I don't consider the gap between that and a custom-made, let's say, Dream Hammock to be that far apart. A ready-to-ship Dream Hammock you may be able to get for just a smidge over $100, and that way you can get something fairly custom to yourself. I don't consider the gap for $80. I would rather you save up your money and your pennies and get that Dream Hammock Darien than to spend $20 to $30 on a cheaper alternative and realize this is not going to work for me. It's one of those cases where it really is a huge jump in quality if you just save a little bit more and get that cottage vendor hammock. Not to say that there are people out there who don't make the cheap hammocks work. They are, but more often than not, what you tend to see is you go out there with a hammock like that and you realize this is not comfortable. And I don't want you to be turned off of hammock camping. The best way I think to start is if you want to be super comfortable and you know hammock camping is for you, then you go all in. And to me, you'll end up paying more with the cheaper Chinese alternative because you'll realize just how bad it is. You'll need to spend stuff to upgrade it to make it up to the level of comfort of a more custom hammock. And by that point, you're spending closer to that $100 mark. So just begin with one of the better options out there. It's reasonable, it's within reach. I implore you to save your pennies and make that purchase. Investing in your sleep is so huge. That's one of the big reasons why I hammock camp personally. People will ask, well, is it one of those things you do because it's trendy? Are you just trying this out till you go back to tents? And the answer to that is absolutely not. I wouldn't backpack where I do, and I wouldn't be able to backpack multiple days if I didn't get the sleep I did in hammock. So hammocks just mean superior sleep. So why not invest in your sleep? If you want a more restful night, you're more likely to get that great night's sleep in a cottage vendor hammock than you are in the Amazon or other cheaper website alternative. And lastly, the customer service and support in our cottage vendors that I've come across has been, bar none, some of the best I've ever seen. I mean, good luck getting that $20 hammock company to fix or repair something that went wrong or to kind of make good on some of their promises out there. Sure, they may send you another cheaper hammock that failed. And the reason why is that it's so cheap for them to manufacture these things is that it's to them pennies on the dollar in terms of profits. So let me talk about the Dream Hammock and that company. Even though there are multiple vendors out there that do good work and are supporting small businesses in the United States, but Dream Hammock, I know Randy and Deanna have barely missed meeting you a couple times at our Ohio YouTuber meetups. But you know exactly who you're supporting. They work out of their home. They keep their business manageable. It's great communication. When you order your hammock, they check and double check. They make things right. And they're the kind of people that I want to support with my money when I purchase a hammock. And I feel good about the purchase, not only because it's a quality product, but because I feel good about who I'm supporting. I know exactly who they are, and I want to support that. So make sure you're using the right tool for the right task. If you want to make sure you get the best sleep possible in the backcountry, make sure you try to use a cottage-made vendor hammock. Same thing with when you're planning your trips. Make sure you use the right tool there as well. And so Art of the Trek, be sure to check them out. They sponsor today's video, and they are focusing right now the winter months on implementing a lot of the ideas that you guys have given them, and I have worked with them personally on making sure that their trip planning software is one of the best out there, not only for the mapping side of things, but there are a lot of different features that they were talking about implementing, and they're working on that right now. So the link for them is in the description, as well as it should be in the pinned comment down below. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. They're really good about answering and checking out comments on videos which they sponsor. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Peace. Little Easter egg here. What I've started doing, one of my New Year's resolutions, which I hate that word right now, but one of my promises to myself is to read more books. My wife is great at reading books, so I know those of you guys who have commented before on the stuff behind me, a lot of these books are actually hers, and I've read a lot of them, but she is the really voracious reader. So at the top here, though, for that pile right there, if you notice that there's some books changing, there are ones that I have read or am in the middle of reading recently. My personal goal is 2 books a month minimum. I'm going to try for 1 nonfiction book and then 1 fiction book. So you guys know I love Brandon Sanderson, so I just recently started reading The Arithmetist, which is kind of a young adult fantasy novel, but I love anything by him, and so far it's been great. Just a little Easter egg if you guys are interested. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, peace out.